Nowadays, it's a good time to be an MMO fan. With plenty of games for us to choose from, it's easy to sit down with any MMO on the market and say, hey, I love that as a gamer, I can sit down and play any MMO ever because they're all great. Okay, now that I got rid of all the disgusting casual MMO players who probably clicked off by now, I can get down to what this is really about. Everyone knows that, like society, there's an MMO hierarchy, okay? And every hierarchy has a top. But at the top of our hierarchy, there are two games fighting over the top spot: World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. With the recent BS going on at Blizzard, Square Enix managed to snag quite a few WoW players with their promise of a new home and hot anime waifus for all those naked, thirsty orcs. But what about Final Fantasy XIV is so enticing to WoW players that switched? Well, the best way to answer that question is to break down what really makes an MMO interesting: the story, the combat, and the PvP. The benefit of being a Final Fantasy game is that it not only has decades of quality storytelling to pull from, but also that Final Fantasy already has a massive following because they're the go-to games for playing a compelling story with iconic characters and scenes. In comparison to World of Warcraft, there's no contest. Final Fantasy has a solid foot in the storytelling department and puts World of Warcraft to shame with the quality of writing. Now, don't get me wrong, Warcraft has deep lore, but at times it feels unorganized with its storytelling, especially in recent times. However, the one thing I do like about World of Warcraft, specifically in earlier WoW, is that you aren't the center of it all. In the early expansions, you feel like a grunt in some aspect. You're part of a story and are attached to characters that can easily just kick your ass at any time. In Final Fantasy, you are the center of it. The story revolves around you, and they let you know that. World of Warcraft does still offer quality storytelling with its earlier expansions like Legion and Mists of Pandaria, but I think the main draw to Final Fantasy for a lot of World of Warcraft players is that it's something different. It's compelling, and it's by a team that delves deep to pull you in as a player and keep you immersed in the world. I'll be honest, aside from World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 2, I have yet to find an online game that nails the flow of combat in a fun way while providing challenge. And if there's one thing that keeps players coming back to World of Warcraft, it's the fluidity of the combat. And even after playing Final Fantasy, I still feel like World of Warcraft has the upper hand here. Now, before you scroll down and leave a spicy comment, I'm not saying Final Fantasy at all has a bad combat system. Final Fantasy's combat is a worthy contender to World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 2. It's a bit more strategic in a sense, and it's a bit slow in the early levels, but once you get your spells and attacks unlocked, it's a frenzy of rotations and colors that would make a grown man cry. However, World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy don't really have comparable combat because the flow of each is so different, but it's equally fun. If you enjoy battles in World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy will be an experience for you, even if it takes some time to get on its feet. Even die-hard Final Fantasy fans cannot deny that PvP in Final Fantasy isn't good. There's no oop, 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 before you comment BS here. It's nothing compared to World of Warcraft. WoW at times feels like it's developed from the ground up with a focus on PvP, and that's what's preserved the game for so many years, for me at least. But I will admit that Endwalker's additions to PvP modes do look very promising, especially with the 4v4 mode. But we'll see in the coming months when that update launches. So with all this taken into consideration, what is the exact reason that World of Warcraft players choose Final Fantasy as their next game? Well, for some, it's a different hard hitter in the genre, and there aren't many other titans out there that can pull the numbers that these two pull, and for good reason. But what it's truly about is what it's always been about for every one of those games out there: anime booba.